Black history and trying to catch people up, but we see these factors at play. We see these folks and these laws that try to keep pushing things back. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about oppression through suppression. Some of the things that we're seeing today in our society.
You're going to have to take that question first, because that's...
Okay. Go ahead, Tarienne.
Sure. So I grew up in a family that, so my parents went to segregated schools. They didn't have get some of the STEM education that was afforded to me and my generation, because the schools were desegregated. And what we're seeing is a push to go back to the way that things were, where history isn't taught. You get different education based on who you are, and so you get different outcomes. And it's the thought that being equal to some people is scary, and so equality feels like they're losing something when actually it's all putting us on the same foot. So what they're trying to do in schools right now is bring it back to what we had before, where not everyone was on the equal footing, and going back to this systemic root of oppression and misrepresentation through our educational system.
Thank you for sharing. Go ahead, Rae.
I love this quote from Dr. King. Nothing in the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance. And I think that is something Utah should take a giant drink of. Because what that is reflecting is, that sincere ignorance where you didn't mean to be racist, or you didn't mean to hurt someone's feelings. No one is actively trying to go out there and be racist, and when they are, we're checking them at that point, right? And so I think it's just important to drink that one in from Dr. Martin Luther King is, nothing in the world is more dangerous than that just sincere ignorance. And I think that when we start uncovering and working to understand history, I think that sharpens our tools for the future. And I think that's super important when we talk about our children. Our children are the #1 guests in our education system, and so that's who we should be prioritizing every single day with every chance we get. And so that's why it's important that this museum exists. It's on wheels. You can't stop it. And that's something very important to take into consideration, is that you can't stop Black history, just like you can't stop that 30-foot bus out there. So, so
you try.
Yeah.
No, I also think that the Black community is really tired of hearing, I didn't know, nobody taught me that.
Yeah.
And we're tired of educating people. So that's one of the reasons why the bus is around, so take that burden off of the Black community.
Absolutely.
So 2 points there. So you talked about that part right there, obviously, and you mentioned checking folks, right?
Yeah, checking
because
folks.
this is important.
Yeah.
This is important. If I'm saying something and I don't understand the ignorance of what I'm saying, how do we check folks? Like, how do we do it in a way, because you can shut them down, right? Mm-hmm. You can cuss them, all those things, right? But in this situation, when somebody's truly ignorant, how do we manage that?
So when I say to check a person, I'm not saying the same behavior you give your dog when he pees on the rug.
Right.
That's not what I'm asking. What I'm reminding you is that we're all human and we're all able to make mistakes. And so when we make those mistakes, let's acknowledge them as they are, which are mistakes, and then grow from that point. It's okay to be wrong. I've been wrong plenty of times, and I don't plan on stopping. That's part of growth. If I want to grow into a beautiful being for my child, I'm going to make lots of mistakes, and I'm going to acknowledge them and then hopefully correct them, and hopefully you all will be there with me to correct me on the way. But just that humanly reminder that if you understand that you are capable of making a mistake, I want you to approach me that same way when you are checking me when I make a mistake.
Right.
And if you don't, I need that reciprocation. And if we're not doing that reciprocation, then we're harming the children that are in front of us. Nothing personal. We're harming a whole generation if we cannot check one another on that humanly level. If that makes sense. I hope that does.
That's so critical, and I've seen that at play in the last couple of years specifically, where somebody thinks they're trying to do the right thing, and they might say it the wrong way. And how you check them can affect how they proceed, right?
Yeah, so absolutely. Just keep in mind you're human and you're about reciprocation. You wouldn't want someone to push you out of your seat for a simple mistake, right? You wouldn't want that, so don't do that to another person. Just check them the same way you would like to be checked when you make a mistake.
So obviously understanding where they're at, they might not be escalated up. You talked about Tarienne, you talked about the education level, right? You talked about being exhausted teaching. It's frustrating, right? What are some things that we can do as a society to push to help folks, I guess you can say, without having to have the long, exhaustive conversations that we have, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I think we're at the point where we're asking society to do their homework. For people that are not part of the majorly represented community, we are often in your places and have done our homework, and now we're asking you to do the same for us. And there's plenty of resources out there. There's books, there's videos. There are people that will that you can pay to come speak to you and your corporation or library or youth group or whatever to help you get these resources. But please stop asking the person that's your coworker or friend or that kind of stuff. That's not their job. It should never be their job to educate you. You should always be trying to be on an equal footing with them. And so we're asking you to take the initiative and stop relying on us.
That's a great point. Thank you so much. Let's talk about the bus. Why was it created? How was it created? What were some of the things that happened to make it happen?
Tarienne has been here since the beginning. You probably want to ask her that.
Go ahead, Tarienne.
She was part of the starting board.
Yeah.
All right, so the bus, how it was created was there's been a long request and demand in the Black community to have something that would teach Black history, particularly Utah Black history. And there was a lot of people that had a lot of great ideas and a lot of initiatives. And it ended up that Lex Scott, who is the leader or was the leader of Utah Black Lives Matter, heard the cry and she was like, well, let's just do something now. I mean, we've been talking about it for such a long time. And if you know Lex, this is all about her personality. And so before even doing anything, she just went out and bought a bus. And then she was like, okay, let's get a group of people together and we'll figure it out. And so a group of people got together and it took about 2 years. We had lots of volunteers. And we gutted the bus, we painted the bus, we created the exhibit. We found out that the exhibit couldn't fit on the bus because we couldn't get wheelchairs on the bus, so we figured out other ways to do it. And then we opened it up during the pandemic in February of 2020, and we've been rolling ever since.
So I remember first seeing the bus, and it was just amazing because it's something we've never seen before, really, and it's beautiful. The artwork is incredible, right? And then you bring out the displays, which again, you guys will be able to see over here on the side. Tell us a little bit about, you can't step on the bus, right? Tell us a little bit about that, and the traveling portion.
Our bus is to bring you an exhibit, right? Because we always can't go to a museum, right? So the idea was to just bring you the exhibit. And like Tarienne said, Lex kind of just went out and bought a bus, and then we figured it out. But what we did, our number one, if you guys don't know Lex, she's the coolest woman on the planet, first of all. Secondly, she lives by intersectionality. So if we have this big giant bus and we want it to visit schools and businesses and parks and all of these places so children can get on there, we have to include everybody. And so we came into that obstacle of it wasn't ADA accessible, and so that's unfair. So I named her Marge, and she is large and in charge, and she will bring you the exhibit now. So she's been my favorite. So yeah, that's kind of how it happened. And so now we travel all over Utah and bring you an exhibit. Some people request certain pieces, and some people just want you to bring the full thing. We are still in search of a home, so that's where a lot of our funding and things like that go to. So if you want to help us achieve those goals, please let us know of places you think that, a Black History Museum should exist, because we're definitely interested in looking into those places. So yeah, it's been super fun. Like I said, you can't really stop that 30-foot bus. So it's just been fun to bring people history all the time.
And just to piggyback on that, there's a QR code in the back for donations. If you would like to donate, or if you have friends that would like to donate. These folks are volunteer basis, right?
Yes.
And so you're going out all over the state, sharing the history. Let's talk about the history. Is it national? Is it local? What are some of the artifacts that you're showing?
Well, that's part of, I think, what's being so cool about being Black and then being in Utah is that our local history, it touches national history too. We're very important, you guys. And so it's super cool to just kind of be part of those puzzles of putting those pieces together for the people. But we are specific from Utah history, so I want Tarienne to really go into the detail, because the idea of it is it's a story. And so you're walking through a storytelling, so.
Yeah, so our traveling exhibit kind of consists of two parts. We have panels, which are the Utah history part, and then we have supplemental national history, which, Utah is national history and natural history is Utah history. So what we try to do with the bus or with the traveling exhibit is we wanted to cover the earliest history that we could find or evidence of Black people in the area. And we have found that with explorers like Duckworth and cowboys like Nat Love. And then what we want to try to go through is the complete history of everything that has gone on with the Black community, from being enslaved and that was brought by the LDS Church, and what it's like to be a member of the community. And here there was an attempt to do redlining, like the rest of the country in the 1930s, and that was fought against and won successfully. We talk about having slavery on the ballot, which was just taken off. We want to celebrate the efforts of our Black Utah representatives that are trying to make sure that our community is well represented and taken care of in Utah right now. And so we celebrate on the bus. One of the biggest things that we had been hearing since we started this project was the absolutely horrid treatment that's going on in schools. And so we do spend quite a bit of the exhibit talking about Utah schools, what people are experiencing. We have a letter that a former student has written to fellow students asking, hey, this is what I experienced in school. This is what I would want you guys and how I would want you to treat me. And we really want to challenge people, especially those students that are looking at the exhibit, to really think about how they're treating their fellow students and how they're representing themselves as Utah students.
Excellent points. You talked about the critical conversations being had specifically at schools. Are there other conversations in terms of reparations or community as a whole that you may be having?
Always, yeah. As when we talk about just hearing Tarienne talk from the education aspect, and us just working to support and hold up our end of the table with supporting education. Your mental health is super important. I always want you to know the name Izzy Tishner.
Yes.
That's a very important name. She's part of our Black history now.
It's okay.
So, your mental health is very important. And like Tarienne said, when we're talking about education, just how you're treating your fellow students, part of that is your mental health. And
one of our objectives, especially with mental health, is making sure that our community is seen. And that's what we're doing with the bus, is making sure that Black students see themselves within the bus. The Black community sees themselves. And we also kind of think of ourselves as a vanguard. Anytime with the civil rights or Black Lives Matter, we're not only helping the Black community, we're helping all the communities around us. So we do want to have those difficult conversations. Right now we're focusing on schools, but later I'd like to add on addition about the conversation of the Buffalo Soldiers and the forced removal of Native Americans from their lands in Utah. And, you know, we participate in that, and that's a difficult conversation, but it's something that needs to be addressed and had. So as these conversations and needs are happening, we want to be resourceful. We change the bus often, and so once you've seen the exhibit once, you know, 6 months later it might be different. So we want to make sure that we are on the pulse of what's going on in the community and supporting the community as best as possible.
You know, you mentioned Izzy, and she was in my neighborhood, so that's close to home. I have 3 kids, and just explaining what happened was traumatizing. We talked about the trauma earlier. We talked about generational trauma and the mental health aspect a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. It's so important that we treat each other with respect. It's so important.
And growing up in Utah, as a Black student, the number one thing I always heard growing up here was that you have to treat people how you want to be treated. And that's why reciprocation is my favorite word. And I would love to just remind everybody to encourage the youth that, just because it's so important. And I think that if Izzy had more people treating her the way that she was treating others, we probably wouldn't have her in the exhibit today.
Right.
Sorry.
No, that's so what are some things first of all, what are some things as a community that we can do? Well, let me back up, excuse me. From the front line, what are some things that you guys are seeing when you go, you know, you bring the bus out to different locations, to different sites? What are some of those things that people were saying to you guys?
Oh, they love the museum, first of all. I've never had a negative compliment. What is that? A negative comment?
Yeah.
Sorry. My favorite thing I love when I see little children who don't look like me but are named after people in that museum. I think that is super cool. Because those little children, they love to come up and let me know that they're named after Mary and all of these really cool historic Black figures who I idolize. Another thing that, like how we always joke about, is Beckworth. So Beckworth is responsible for naming a lot of the spaces and canyons, I believe, right, Tarienne, throughout Utah. And so when the children come and they look at the exhibit, they love to relate his face to Snoop Dogg, which is a hip-hop artist today, right? So it's fun to watch the youth tie something like Beckworth to something that they might be listening to every single day, because now I know they're going to know who Beckworth is. And I didn't know who Beckworth was when I was a child.
Tarienne, any thoughts?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting. For some, the bus is a comfortable place. It's the first time that they're being seen, or they feel like they're being seen by a museum or an educational kind of unit. Other times, mostly it's an uncomfortable spot. And so we have a lot of people that have very visceral reactions to some of the items that are in our exhibit, some of the things that we discuss. One of the things that I noticed is one Juneteenth I was working, and we have a photograph of the KKK, which is in Utah. The KKK has a rich history in Utah. It's alive and well still. But every time I would do my pass, make sure that everything was okay, that picture would either have been pushed somewhere where it was hidden from view, or someone would lay it down so that people couldn't see the picture. And I just noticed how uncomfortable that one piece was making people enough for them to shift it around, move it, or try to hide it. Hopefully, I'm glad they didn't try to take it. But yeah, so we understand that, you know, not all history is comfortable, but, you know, we can't bury it, we can't hide it. Once we start having conversations about it, the less uncomfortable it will be for everyone. You know, for one person, it could be, you know, I finally get a chance to talk about this. I'm healing inside, and then you're hearing me and you're listening to my experience. And a lot of times when people are like, well, you guys want reparations, yeah, some people want reparations, but some of us just want to be acknowledged. We want to be heard, and that's the only way that that healing will happen.
That's a really good point.
And reparations could mean anything.
Right.
I always love to bring that up.
Right.
Because sometimes the idea of reparations is all of a sudden black people are rich as
You
people
can
in
get
the whole
money
country,
or
and now,
handout or whatever.
and
Yeah.
now our country's falling apart. Yeah. No, sometimes reparations could be free mental health services. And I think that's something to be considered, you know. Sometimes reparations, it could be given the opportunities to do oral histories. Sometimes our grandparents, they don't get those opportunities to put those into paper. And so sometimes we have those opportunities where we can do the oral histories, where we can record them telling stories. So sometimes reparations can just look like funding those experiences and those opportunities for Black and brown communities.
Yeah, we have a very interesting example in Frederick Douglass. So his father was also his slave owner. And as an older gentleman, he went back to visit his father. And the only thing he wanted to know from his father was his real birthday. And that's the only thing he wanted. So, you know, it could be just knowing more about yourself. A lot of times, a lot of Black history has been taken from us. We don't know who we have lost generations that we cannot find. And, you know, just having tidbits like birth dates and names and that type of thing is treasure in the world to many people.
And you both make a really good point. You know, sometimes it's hard to even have the conversation because of politics behind the scenes. We're seeing, you know, critical race theory thrown out there. We're seeing diversity under attack today, right? And you can't even have the conversation to build up to these things. So it's always, you know, getting pushed back. How do we keep this conversation going? How do we move the conversation forward, understanding the challenges at play?
I will forward advice from Bernice King. She said to go and listen to her father's sermons and just really think about the words that he chose to put into his sermons. Something very unique about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is that he was very much into language. He knew that language was a presentation that needed to be universally understood. So his word choice, it's there for a purpose, and it holds heavy positive weight that we should be recognizing. So that is something that Bernice King was sharing recently, was to just go listen to his sermons. His sermons were really powerful and very supportive. Some of them might make you feel uncomfortable, but like it's just a sermon. Like it's a temporary moment of uncomfortability that you can survive, and it's worth it, especially when, you know, we have someone like Bernice King reminding us to listen to her father's sermons.
And that's really important because sometimes things get taken out of context. Sometimes, you know, yesterday we celebrated Dr. King, the holiday, you know, directly, and you have a lot of people sharing quotes. You know, I have a dream and all these good things, but not knowing the quotes, not knowing the background, not knowing the groundwork that came through there, right? Not understanding all the things that he said, not just a couple things over here that make us feel good. He said a lot of stuff that was controversial. He was public enemy number one. And so we got to understand how we got there.
Yeah.
And it took a lot of people, you know, we talked about Dr. King specifically, but it took a lot of people behind the scenes that challenged him.
It's a collective movement.
It's a collective movement. Tarienne, do you have any other thoughts?
I think what we have to do is kind of take a book from Martin Luther King and other civil rights and leaders. Is we have to take it out of the regulated spaces. If they're not going to allow us to talk in school, then, you know, that's why we have a museum. It's for us, by us, and to support us. Or so there's got to be other ways that, you know, if they're not going to let you talk about diversity on your college campuses, you know, start a group. Maybe a book group that reads biographies of certain people and that type of thing. There's always got to be workarounds. We can work outside the system. The system wasn't created for us. It's created against us, and it's being used against us every day. So,
absolutely. And shout out to some the local places that like to remind us that diversity is welcome.
Right.
Shout out to those places that still exist out there, because it's important for a person like me in the position that I am with the museum. So thank you for existing.
I think one of the things that we try is book clubs, and that opens up the conversation, gets different perspectives out there. What's written is written. What's studied is studied. How do we apply those things, right? And so that's a powerful tool that we use at my company to try to bring employees together. So really powerful. Last question for you guys. We have a great audience. Thank you all for coming out today. How can the community support the history and the bus?
If you see something that you think the Utah Black History Museum needs or should have, or should preserve, get it. Get it and hit us up, because we get that a lot. They bug Tarienne a lot. Ask her. She gets books. She's got spoons. She has everything. So she's really cool, and she'll totally respond if you guys see anything that you think that we need to help amplify and preserve in our museum. Other ways, please volunteer. We have a dedicated few volunteers, and we love you a lot because you guys always show up, so thank you. And then also just let people know that we exist. And if you think that there is a school that's lacking, a visit from Black history, well, that's why we have a bus. So let us know where to visit, and if we're welcomed, then we'll show up.
That's beautiful. Tarienne, any other thoughts to that?
Yeah, we go to neighborhoods, we go to any events that you guys want us. We especially want to help out the children, so anything that you can think of. We love volunteers, like Rae said. We're always looking for, especially people that want to bone up on their history and want to say, hey, you know what I learned today, and that kind of thing. We love to have more hands involved, and you guys volunteers make great role models, and so just anything, any donations or anything that you guys have or knowledge or skills or talent, we would love to use you in helping further the cause of the community.
And not just on MLK Day or Black History Month.
Yeah.
Every day.
Every day,
or
right?
Juneteenth.
Yeah, or Juneteenth. They're busy.
Or Juneteenth. Good point, yes.
February and June, we're really busy, so.
So again, the QR code's in the back. Please use the bus. Please call them up. Use them in different schools. Use them in different locations. The kids love it, right?
Yeah.
And the history is so critical. So right now, we want to open it up to Q&A. We got a few. Miss Heidi here, thank you, has a mic. So Q&A. Who has a question? Right here?
Yeah, I have two. One is a comment.
She's coming up with the mic.
Oh, I think everyone can hear me. I have two observations. One, my grandson his best friend is biracial, and so color doesn't mean anything, to young children. But he was in kindergarten when somebody called him the N-word, and that just, since then, my son always says, "Mom, what is that word?" Or "Oma, what's that word? What does that word mean?" And that's a very difficult word to describe to a young 5-year-old, what that word meant or means. So that really upset his parents, of course, and us. And that's why I was wondering, do you have a card or something where a school could call you and have you come to this school for, the exhibit, or?
We don't have a card, but
Okay.
you can go to www.ubhm.org.
Oh, okay. Because I think that's very important.
Can I comment on what you're saying?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so when a child is called a racial slur, that has altered that child. I do want you to know that now.
Yes.
So now that child has been altered, that child needs nothing but love and support. One thing I want to comment about the N-word is that we actually have a really good friend named Milton Grimes, and Milton Grimes was Rodney King's lawyer. And he loves to come to Utah, and he loves to talk to Black and brown kids on why we don't use that word anymore. And one thing that sticks out to me the most is because that word was the last word heard by Emmett Till. So that is the weight that it holds. and it's the weight that we no longer need to carry. And that's all I wanted to comment on that. Thank you.
Let me ask this question. Have you guys had a conversation since about that whole situation? And
Yes, and
Okay.
also, they did try, the school tried to talk to the parents of the
Okay.
little boy who used that word, because it had to come from the parents.
Of course.
A 5-year-old
Or-
is not going to know
yeah.
that. So the school tried to have a conversation with the family to say, look, this is, unacceptable in our school, and therefore, it has to come from you guys.
Mhm.
And it hasn't been said since, but, kids don't look at color. My son didn't even know that, he was a little different, or not even different, but that his color was not the same.
Right.
They don't look at that. They just know that him and Liam are the best of friends,
Right.
and they always will be.
Do you know why kids do see color, though? Because crayons exist.
That's true.
That is true. Because my daughter, she will go through every single color of the crayon to pick her correct color. So they do see color, and they love it.
Can I
is the
comment on that
structures
real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say that, agree, that children do see color, and that avoiding those conversations is exacerbating the problem.
Right.
My children are biracial, and if racism starts in a racist family from those parents, and a 5-year-old can call another child the N-word, then it's our duty to teach our children about racism and what to do about it. And to start at a very young age.
Yes. You have to.
My children are labeled by others, and so I want them to know who they are and where they come from and what their history is. And so it's the only way to fight racism is with information and knowledge.
Thank you.
Right here. Thank you for that point.
I totally agree with you. I have 2 brown grandchildren.
Talking to the mic.
Oh, I'm scared of it. So whenever I went out to visit them, they were probably 2 or 3. And the older one we were sitting at the kitchen table, and he wanted to see how dark I was. And obviously that comes from someplace, and it came deep. And so for some reason, we've really screwed up, and it's heartbreaking.
But you're human.
You're human.
Yeah, well, I don't know where they pick it, it does come. I mean.
It's everywhere.
As much as you think that they don't pick up on it, they do.
It's on TV.
They
it's
get it
in school.
all
it's
the way
everywhere.
through preschool
Yeah.
and everything.
There's conditioning through
So,
commercials and
terrible.
all types of places. So.
Thank you.
I have 2 comments. Again, this is scary on the microphone because I can't tell how loud I am. One, you mentioned that every time you go to the bus, it may be different.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, I've been to the bus twice. And the first time, God, it changed me. You like when you say they use the word that alters somebody. Going to that bus will alter you.
Yeah.
Then you go back 6 months later, and it's not just that the bus changed, you have changed, and you see more, and you feel more, and you want to go again, which is why I came yesterday on the wrong day and today on the right day. And my second comment is I'm a retired school teacher and have been for a long time. I taught 2nd grade. The last, maybe 7 years or so of my teaching career, we discovered people-colored crayons and people-colored construction paper. If you have grandkids, if you have children, if you have neighbors, go to their school and take them those markers and those crayons and that paper. Every child, it didn't even matter whether they were black or white or brown or whatever color their skin was. I always hated when I was a kid that there was a white colored crayon and a pink colored crayon, and I didn't fit either one of those. That's not my color, and peach didn't help me either. So it's not just, I know it's more intense, and I'm not trying to negate that, but get those crayons. The teachers can't afford them. We ended up getting a box to share for a table of 4, and they would just, I need that crayon, I need that crayon, I need that crayon. We break them in half so more people could have them. Get those crayons, get that paper, get those markers in whoever's class you love. The teacher will appreciate it, most likely. I mean, even if the teacher has issues, supplies like crayons that the kids are gonna love, they're gonna accept.
Right.
So that's my 2 cents.
And there's a really good company to get your crayons from. There was a little girl, I believe she was age 9, and she started More Than Peach is her brand. So she has a crayon book. We have the book on display, and then she has her crayons, and you can actually go to her website and you can order classroom sets for your teachers from her, the little girl who started the. Yes, do it. Okay, sorry.
I had a question. So my daughter, she's biracial, but she's Latina, and she's faced racism on both sides because she's lighter skin, Latina. But I had a question. Have you ever faced opposition from schools, like
Yes.
when you go, and how do you handle that? Like, what steps do you take?
May I ask for clarification, as in, you mean opposition as, like, they're like, we don't want the museum?
Yeah, and
Okay.
or in the case of like Davis School District, right? Like, or not to name names, right? Like school district.
That's the one. Well, that's not just the one.
Like what would be the steps of, or like what brainstorming ideas at schools that are like, that don't want to face those problems?
Okay, we had a scenario similar.
Yeah, those
In the
conversations.
district you did not mention.
Right.
We had a school that they wanted us to come to, but we weren't hearing back from administration, and we do need administration's permission. We can't just show up because your children are in the schools, right? So we had a little bit of pushback from them, but we had parents who wanted us to come. And the parents were pushing, but there was just no way. So we have lovely Eddie, who was doing Juneteenth in that neighborhood. And so we brought the museum, and the parents who wanted us to come, they came to that Juneteenth celebration. So we try, if we're not allowed in a school, we're very transparent. Hey, they don't want us to visit. So if you guys want us to come to something, you guys are parents and you're just at the park next to the school and you want us to come over, okay. Like we can go indoor, outdoor. But yeah, we've had situations like that. But if you want to see us, it will happen. It always does. Ask any parent who's ever seen us more than once.
We've gone to neighborhoods before. If you just have a spot for us to park it, we will park it there.
Yeah. 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 Any other questions?
Do you have a reading list or anything that maybe is on your?
You're asking us our library, huh? Our library is nuts. We can't bring all of our books because we have so many.
I know.
But we do.
So much on Black history.
Yeah.
And I started it in 2018.
Yeah. We don't have a public list of books, but it will be soon on the website where we will have like our recommendations or books that we're traveling with.
That's what I meant.
And just to plug the library as well, they have they have archives. So please check that out as well.
Our collection for our library, we try to collect the things that are not represented in the public libraries with Black history and even just, children's books and that type of thing. So what we are trying to do, if you can't find it in the public library, we hope to have it where people can come and look at our books and supplement what's not being found.
So if you don't have it at your library, let us know what it is and we'll work hard to get it in our library.
Hi, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us. I have a question. So tomorrow, the legislative session starts. Today it starts, right? And last I heard that there are going to be 18 anti-DEI bills, so that's diversity, equity, and inclusion, that are going to be proposed affecting higher education. I don't know how many are going to affect K through 12. How do you recommend each person get involved?
Oh, great question.
The first one is out.
It's already out.
If you want to look at a bill, the first one is out.
What is the name of it?
Equal opportunity initiatives.
Trash it. Oh, sorry. What would I recommend? I would recommend you print out the bill and go through the bill. I just finished that bill. But I would recommend you do that with any bill that targets diversity, equity, and inclusion. What Utah is forgetting is if we eliminate diversity, equity, and inclusion, that doesn't just eliminate Black and African Americans. That eliminates it all. That's the list. That's all of us, from physical disabilities to non-physical disabilities, to mental health disorders, to everything, to military status, economic status. So it's super important that every single person gets involved with legislation now that it's been started today. Go through those bills and ask questions. There's been plenty of situations where, hey, I don't understand this. I'm going to email the guy who wrote it. Do it. And if they don't write you back, that lets you know what they're trying to do with the bill, right? So, and it's super important to get involved. They have public comment. Get involved in public comment. But really, it's just important. It's all hands on deck. Everyone needs to be paying attention, and everyone needs to be involved, and everyone's word is important in this moment. Because if they work tirelessly to remove diversity, equity, inclusion, that's from everything. I mean, that's the little dip in the sidewalk to make sure
equity.
People with wheelchairs can get on the sidewalk. That's what diversity, equity, inclusion looks like, is the dip in the sidewalk. And so if we want to eliminate that, then we're going to create a society for cookie cutters, and none of us in this room are a cookie. So.
Really important to pay attention this week, because as we celebrated yesterday, a lot of good things were said. But today, it could be for the next couple of weeks, can be a very different story if the forces at play have their way.
There's a power and organization get together with all the people that, you know, are affected by this and don't support this, and we can do like we did with fighting Redline and go up to the Capitol and protest. You know, get your words out there. If they don't hear from us, then they're just gonna think, you know, this is okay, so this is what they want, but we gotta fight it.
It is important to be involved. Yeah.
I just wanted to bring up that 261 does target our children's. It's one of the only bills that targets K through 12 education as well as higher education. So I do want people to know that that's happening here in Utah, and it hasn't so far in other states. And then also just encourage everybody to participate with our Utah State Board of Education. They just heard, just last week, there was a hearing on getting rid of educational equity in our schools. So they need to hear from us too. The repeal only lost by 1 vote. So they need to hear from us on that.
We got to make sure we speak up, folks. It's up to all of us.
And if you don't know what to say, ask questions.
Ask questions.
Hi, my name is Janine Locke, and I'm with the Utah Pacific Islander Civic Engagement Coalition. And our organization empowers Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders to become civically engaged through education, advocacy, especially during the legislative session, and leadership development. And so I went as a private citizen. I saw Rae there at the Utah State Board of Education. Prior to last year getting this job as an outreach and events coordinator, I can honestly say I was just trying in survival mode, just trying to keep my head above water with providing for my family. But what I realized after getting this job, the more that I sat in different spaces and learned, it just became more of an urgent necessity for me and my community and other communities, such as our community, our Pacific Islander community in Utah, to speak up and to intentionally and deliberately put ourselves in places where those decisions are being made. And so I just wanted to invite you all. We have a public event tomorrow at the Capitol. It's called UPASEC, that stands for Utah Pacific Islander Civic Engagement Coalition, UPASEC Legislative Session Kickoff. And the purpose of that event is to find ourselves in those spaces. So its legislative session starts today. So bringing each of us, everyday, ordinary, regular people of Utah, Utahns, into that space. You can go before our event starts and sit in on legislative session to kind of get your bearings of how that goes. Our event will take you on a docent-led tour of the state capitol and then into a workshop it's pretty much like a legislative session one-on-one. To just introduce you to what happens there and how you can give public comment, how you can know those bills and why. And just like you mentioned with all of those bills for DEI, it's not just on our radar, but we have to say something, we have to do something, we have to write. So anyway, you're all invited.
What time?
1:30 to 5:30 tomorrow.
1:30 to 5:30?
Yeah, in the lunch area is where our check-in is. The Olmsted room in the East Senate building is where the workshop will be, and then the tours, by the east entrance. And then our speaker, our keynote speaker, has a lifetime in public education, and she's currently the executive director of National Association of Multicultural Education, will be speaking. And there's free food.
Awesome. Got time for a few more questions? 2 more questions?
I'm going back to the bus. I live in South Salt Lake. I don't know what other cities are doing, but my city is trying to bring community to our cities, and they're offering free block parties. Not free, but they will donate some money if you organize it and have like things for kids jumping, those things they jump on. It's been a while since I've been a kid. If you have food, they'll donate some money. Maybe your city will too. And let me tell you, Rae, and everybody, you're going to be hearing from me, because I don't have a young kid anymore or a grandkid, but I care about education, and I want my neighbors to know about that bus. Okay. I don't know if I can get it in the school. I don't know if you've been to Woodrow Wilson, but that's my local elementary school. Thanks.
Thank you. One more question? Oh, Al, all right.
Hello, and good morning, I guess, still. I don't know what to call it, but hope you guys are doing good. How are you, Eddie? How are you, Rae?
Great. Thanks for coming.
And I represent the SOC Area Anti-Discrimination Task Force, and I've been around for about 7 years now. We help to bring the message of diversity and awareness to those that are marginalized in every aspect. We are particularly working with immigrant and refugee populations as well as others. But I just wanted to ask, I came late, but I was thinking that you guys started at 11, and I apologize for that. I just wanted to ask, what is new on the horizon for the Utah Black History Museum as far as your long-term goals? Let's say if you got this tremendous grant, would you guys be looking, would you be looking at getting a brick and mortar location in addition to your bus?
Yes.
Or could you elaborate on that, please?
Yeah, of course. So that is definitely our goal right now. Was Tarienne talking? Oh, no, sorry. Thought she was talking. Yeah, that's definitely our goal. We definitely want a brick and mortar. We want to solidify Utah Black history in Utah. And so that's definitely a goal. So if, couple million just dropped in my pocket real quick, I would love that. I would definitely buy the museum a home. I want us to have a permanent location. I think that we could do some really cool things with a permanent location. We could host diversity and equity inclusion spaces within our museum because like Tarienne said, like if they don't want us to have diversity, equity, and inclusion in our schools, okay, cool, we'll create a safe space where we're able to do that. And I would love that. That's like the dream right now. That's why I'm so excited about the idea, is because that's the dream, is to have this safe space for Utah Black history where we can grow and basically collectively grow together and have this like safe space that has a historical tie and history, and yeah, it would be absolutely.
It will come.
Absolutely.
It will come.
It has to.
Yeah, once we get the space, we'll have places for classes. We want to do like helping learning sessions, and then we'll have the library where people can come in and look at books and check books out. And we might be getting a temporary space, and we have other ideas for other exhibits featuring Black history. So there's lots of possibilities. We wanted to make a community space for everyone to learn and share and grow.
Yeah.
So we want to thank everybody again for coming out today. Thank you, Rae. Thank you, Tarienne, for your time.
Yes, and I want to thank you, Eddie, for moderating this session. Thank you, Rae. Thank you, Tarienne. This has been, I think, just a very useful session for everyone to just sit and reflect. And thank you for the good work you're doing with the Black History Museum.
Teamwork makes the dream
Yes.
work.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Can I put 2 plugs in real quick?
Absolutely.
So right after this, at the S.J. Quinney Law Building, Ruthie Carter's going to be speaking at noon. So go see that. Make sure you see the display here.
Yeah.
We're working with the bus to have our event for Black History Month, February 24th. We'll have more information, but we're working to have them participate at that event as well on this campus. So.
Yep. We also have refreshments in the back, which I hope you will partake of. There are excellent, and I mean excellent, baklava from the Mahider Ethiopian restaurant, which is a Black-owned business here in Salt Lake City. We also have exhibits from special collections and also a book display. So please enjoy, take part in the other events, and thank you all for coming and really participating in this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tarienne.
Tarienne.